Hey everyone, it's Tom, and I'm doing a different kind of video today. For those of you who have just started following me recently, you may not know that I used to do a music discussion podcast with my friend Jake called Velocities in Music, where we talk about various music topics, and honestly, I've kind of just missed that, so this video will be more of that format. I think about random stuff like this all the time, and I find it helpful and enjoyable to organize my thoughts by sharing them this way, and I also love the conversations that it can kickstart. So, if you're into this, please leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If this isn't your thing, that's fine. You don't have to watch it. You can go play video games or whatever it is you like to do. The topic for this video is, are the Grammys a sham? The 2023 Grammy nominations were announced a while back, so I've been thinking a lot about the Grammys as an institution since then, and the things that have frustrated me with them in the past. Now, I could just go on a rant about this year's nominations that I disagree with, and I'll get into that a little bit along the way, but that's too easy and too easily refutable. Whether or not you agree with the choices for nominees is too subjective, so instead, I want to be as objective as possible here about the problems the Grammys have had as an institution, trends that have been occurring for years, not just gripes about one-off decisions that they've made this time around. So let's start with a little bit of devil's advocate here. I want to actually defend the Grammys from some common complaints that don't really hold a lot of water in my opinion. For one, a lot of people accuse the Grammys of being a popularity contest, and to an extent I agree with that. But there are a lot of Grammys given to lesser-known artists that just aren't televised or talked about. While awards shouldn't be based on popularity alone, it also doesn't make sense to exclude popular music just because it's popular. Honestly, popularity should be a factor. I don't think that's the problem. What it comes down to is that award shows are always going to be run by some small group of people, and their decisions are inevitably going to piss a lot of people off. You can't please everyone. Everyone has different tastes. But it's about getting the right balance between popularity and other factors, and that's where I think the Recording Academy has really failed in the past. Artists have started voicing their concerns too, and in doing so have surfaced a lot of underlying issues in how Grammys have been run. A lot of people were shocked when Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars decided not to submit their Silk Sonic album for Grammy consideration, but they didn't really take the opportunity to make a bigger statement about it. Still, I like the general sentiment they're showing there, that you don't have to take part in the competitive nature of the industry, because sometimes these kinds of actions can spur change from the inside. People like me complaining about it on YouTube is probably never going to get us anywhere if the artists who are part of that in-crowd continue to be complicit in it. However, that's probably easier for Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars to do after they've already won over 20 Grammys between the two of them. For lesser-known artists who are maybe being nominated for the first time, this is a big opportunity for them, and I can't fault them for taking part. But then once the institution has gotten you that level of recognition, it feels a little bit like biting the hand that feeds you to back out of it. More artists like Drake, Tyler, the Creator, and The Weeknd have spoken out about the Grammys practices, and others have even boycotted the award show in the past. In 2020, after winning the award for Best Rap Album, Tyler, the Creator said, "On one side, I'm very grateful that what I made could just be acknowledged in a world like this. But also, it sucks that whenever we, and I mean guys that look like me, do anything that's genre bending, they always put it in a rap or urban category. I don't like that urban word. To me, it's just a politically correct way to say the N-word. Why can't we just be in pop?" It's a totally fair point, and it speaks to how out of touch the Recording Academy has been historically. Back in 1989, everyone was shocked when Jethro Tull beat Metallica for Best Hard Rock or Metal Performance, claiming that Jethro Tull didn't even fit that category. We're seeing the same issue now with Muse and Turnstile being nominated for Best Metal Performance category, despite neither of them being metal bands. What makes it even clearer that the Recording Academy is out of touch with these genre definitions is that Turnstile's song Blackout, which I recently did a cover of, by the way, link up there, was nominated for Best Metal Performance and Best Rock Song. So which one is it? I mean, you could argue that metal is a subgenre of the larger rock genre, but if there are already separate categories for each of them, I think it's fair to expect that you wouldn't see songs appearing in both. Once again, it just makes the Academy seem oblivious. Now, I'll admit, with how quickly the world's musical landscape evolves, it can be hard to keep up with everything, but I'm not willing to give the Recording Academy a pass on that because it's their job. If your average music enthusiast can maintain a general understanding of musical genres and an appreciation for some of the more obscure music being released, you'd expect the people whose literal job it is to do that to be able to do that. They should be leading and anticipating these changes and trends, but instead they're struggling to keep up with them. A great example of them failing to lead in these trends and always seeming a step behind is the Best New Artist category. This award is currently defined as follows. This category recognizes an artist whose eligibility year release or releases achieved a breakthrough into the public consciousness and notably impacted the musical landscape. This description feels like a bit of a cop-out to me, because they're admitting that it's more about the artist's release achieving a breakthrough into the public consciousness, not necessarily that they're a new artist. It basically means, as long as they're new to us, which in my opinion opens it up to any artists who happen to have a breakthrough later in their careers, which is common and in my opinion not applicable to this category. There have been several times that artists have been nominated in this category and even won who are arguably not new artists. In 2012, Bon Iver won the award for his second album, Bon Iver, Bon Iver, and I would argue that his debut from 3 or 4 years prior for Emma Forever Ago and the Blood Bank EP from 2009 had a very notable impact on the musical landscape. In fact, Kanye West's 2010 album, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, contained a prominent Bon Iver sample, and that won Best Rap Album in 2012. At the same time, Bon Iver was winning Best New Artist. I'd say at that point, sounds like a pretty well-established artist to me. Silversun Pickups and MGMT were both nominated for the award in 2010, despite having noteworthy debut albums in 2006 and 2007, respectively. Fountains of Wayne was nominated in 2004 after their third album was released. David Gray in 2002 after he had released like 5 albums or something. There are a lot of examples like this, and what they tell me is that the Recording Academy is just hearing about these artists for the first time. But for a lot of fans who are paying attention to new music, these are not new artists. Also, for a group of people whose job it is to have the finger on the pulse of where music is and where it's going, you'd think they'd have a better track record of choosing artists in this category who would actually go on to have lengthy, noteworthy careers. I'll admit they've done a decent job of this over the last 10 to 15 years or so, and you can never predict when an artist will die at a young age or stop making music, so I'll give them a pass on that. But if you scroll through the full list, which I've included in the source links below, you'll see a lot of artists who I would argue just didn't have that big of an impact on music or didn't go on to have particularly noteworthy careers. And that's not to diminish those artists' achievements, it's just to say that there had to have been better picks. And while hindsight is certainly 20/20, I would expect them to get this right more often than they do. I think if I were to call out one particularly egregious year, it'd be 1979 when A Taste of Honey beat out The Cars and Elvis Costello for Best New Artist. Yikes. The Recording Academy also faced backlash in early 2018 after people started calling out the show for being so predominantly male. The only female winner in a major category was Alessia Cara for Best New Artist, and Lorde, the only female Album of the Year nominee, wasn't invited to perform, while apparently every other male nominee was. When confronted with this, President Neil Portnow said something along the lines of, "Women who want to be included in the industry need to step up." It's pretty bad. Now, to be fair, if you read his full statement, I think it comes from a place of encouragement, not necessarily saying that women need to step up and make music as good as their male counterparts, but that if they made themselves more visible, the industry would be welcoming of them and there would be more opportunity for them. At best, though, this is a very ignorant and dismissive statement because it's putting the onus back on women to make that change happen. Even though women are already out there making great music, they're just not being recognized for it. And it's taking no accountability for the fact that the Recording Academy is in a position to put that equality into practice. And the fact that the president of the Recording Academy didn't even realize how this statement would come off shows how deep-seated and ingrained into the institution those biases really are. I could keep going with other examples and complaints, but I think I've made my point about what I would consider to be some of the Grammys' objective failures. What I'd like to do now is pitch some ideas of how I think the Recording Academy could improve the Grammys and the specific problems that would be solved in doing so. But first, let me be clear that I have zero faith or expectations these changes will actually take place, because It's all about money and spectacle. The Grammys are meant to get viewers and make money, and my ideas don't support those priorities. So this will never happen, but still, it's fun to think about hypothetically. Number 1, continue to revise the categories. To the Recording Academy's credit, in 2012, they did away with gender-specific categories, so no more Best Male, Best Female Vocal Performance, or whatever. This reduced the total awards given by 31. I think this was the right choice, personally. However, it then makes the matter of gender equity within those categories all the more important and all the more difficult to enforce. Still, in 2023, there will be 91 award categories, and that feels like a lot. Personally, I'm on the fence on whether all the distinctions between solo and duo or group performances need to be there, and there are some categories with very fuzzy genre definitions. You remember the thing Tyler, the Creator, said earlier about the urban category? Well, a couple of years ago, they got rid of that and replaced it with categories like Best Progressive R&B Album and Best Melodic Rap Performance. Maybe I'm just ignorant as to the nuanced differences between those and their root categories, but I don't know why those can't just be grouped together with R&B and rap respectively. It's like they still don't have a clean way to classify the genre bending Tyler was referring to, so they just slap progressive or melodic on it, which feels pretty lazy to me. It's nice to hear that they are listening to feedback and trying to evolve on this front, but to me it doesn't feel like they're quite there yet. I think the subgenres they choose to turn into their own categories feels really arbitrary, and tightening some of them up could leave room for more expanding and evolving genres, so that maybe in the future there won't just be a generic alternative music category, whatever that means. Although most of the time the stuff in that category is just rock or pop anyway, but the Recording Academy clearly has no idea what to do with it. Number 2, I also think they need to reduce the number of nominees again. For the most part, from 1958 to 2017, the major categories only had 5 nominees. In 2018, they increased it to 8, and last year they increased it to 10. It's just too damn many nominees. You can't keep track of it, and there's no good reason to have that many. I feel like the rationale for this has to be to attract more viewers. If we're nominating 10 artists for big awards rather than 5, we're potentially doubling the fan base that we're pulling in to see if their favorite artist will win. I mean, that's clearly what it's all about. They're trying to get as many big, recognizable names as possible so they'll get as many viewers as possible, but the list is unwieldy and ridiculous. Keep the lists tight. Number 3, air more awards and fewer performances. At the previous Grammys, only about 10 of the 86 awards that were given were televised. However, they have begun live streaming the earlier ceremonies where the other awards are given, and that's great. Push that more. Get more people watching that. The Grammys as an institution should support all these categories the same, even if some of them will inevitably get more attention. It's not up to them to decide that Best Rap Album is more important than Best Reggae Album, for example. A Grammy is a Grammy. Stop doing everything for the baseline audience and be industry leaders, be trendsetters. Expose people to something they might not have known about before. It's still great to have some performances, but make them about the music and not the spectacle, and get some diversity in there. Do a classical, roots, reggae, or Latin performance. Stop catering the performance selections to the kind of people who didn't know who Arcade Fire was in 2011. And number 4, pick better nominees. Of course, this one is going to be subjective as to who deserves it and who doesn't, but there's an aspect of this that I would argue is objective, and it's to stop nominating the same artists every damn time they release anything. Foo Fighters, Paul McCartney, Beyonce, Adele, these are all great artists, but not everything they do is award-worthy. Give other artists who are working hard and pushing their art forward a shot, and make these other staple artists truly earn their place on the ballot. Be more discerning and more critical. Nominating the same people every time they release something just feels lazy. It prevents variety and stifles music discovery and innovation. For example, this year Coldplay's album Music of the Spheres got nominated for Album of the Year. I would argue that probably nobody who listened to more than 20 albums in the last year put Music of the Spheres in their top 10. Machine Gun Kelly got nominated for Best Rock Album. I would argue that probably nobody who listened to more than 20 rock albums in the last year put Machine Gun Kelly's album in their top 10. And keep in mind that I'm not saying that Coldplay and Machine Gun Kelly suck. You may think that, but it doesn't matter. That's not the argument here. They don't have to suck. They just have to not be the best, and I think they're clearly not. The argument is, of the thousands of albums released in the last year and submitted to the Recording Academy for Grammy consideration, are they in the very top tier? Are they better than everything else? I'm willing to bet that 99% of music enthusiasts who listen to a wide sample of albums each year would say no. But Coldplay and MGK are big names. They'll pull in viewers, and that's clearly more of a priority than recognizing outstanding music. Now, a broken clock is still right twice a day, and I'll admit that there's some great nominations this year. I mentioned Turnstile is up for like 3 Grammys, which they absolutely deserve. Idols, Spoon, Big Thief, Wet Leg, Bjork, Yeah Yeah Yeahs, all great artists who deserve this recognition. I would even say that some of the really obvious ones like Harry Styles, Brandi Carlile, Lizzo, Adele, and Kendrick Lamar all deserve to be on there based on the quality of their recent releases. So it's not all bad, but too often the selections just feel like they're being made for the wrong reasons. It feels more about viewership, hype, and spectacle than it does recognizing art or moving music forward. So, are the Grammys a sham? I don't think it's a simple answer. It's a yes and a no. Yes, in the sense that it feels like a big flashy circle jerk where the priorities are way off, but on the other hand, there are some truly great artists being recognized. I think the main takeaway here for me is that there is significant room for improvement in specific areas. But what do you think? Who are your favorite nominees from this year, and which ones pissed you off? Do you agree with my assessment? Do you think I'm full of shit? Let me know in the comments. I welcome a healthy disagreement. It's how we all learn. Thanks for watching.